asked for this? A Souls game where you drop into the map like a battle royale, have to fight alongside your two teammates Tweedledee and Tweedledum in order to beat past Souls bosses you've already defeated years ago?
Is that the Grim Reaper?
Okay, that actually sounds kinda cool, but are Souls fans actually going to play it, or is Nightraign's experimental formula going to tarnish Elden Ring's good name? The key themes of what make a Souls game are clearly in effect here. Explore, defeat enemies, loot weapons, become stronger, and defeat a powerful foe. Nothing out of the ordinary, except when it comes to the pace in which you achieve this. It could not be more different, and this is where a lot of the problems could arise for this game to be a success. FromSoft is a company known for changing and evolving their previous projects, the prime example Elden Ring being made with the accumulation of knowledge gathered from developing the Dark Souls series and adjacent spin-off projects. However, these games have all shared the genre action RPG, whilst Nightreign is a co-op action survival game. It feels weird asking this question with the name Elden Ring in its title, but can Nightreign even be considered a Souls-like? And how will FromSoftware's audience, so accustomed to one formula, react to a project so different? FromSoftware have experimented with their formula before, in the case of Sekiro and its combat, and Elden Ring with its open world, but is this a step too far? How much of what people like about Souls games is actually in Nightreign? We can start simple and clearly identify that Nightreign looks like a Souls-like Elden Ring, using assets from the game, environments and animations. There are boss fights and enemies from the game, sites of grace, and similar weapons and methods of attack. Common feedback from the network test tells us that the game is difficult, which often automatically slaps the Souls-like tag on it, but how could it be? Souls-likes don't have procedurally generated changing maps, permadeath where you lose all your gear, and a replaying gameplay loop where you start back at day one. This sounds more like a roguelite. And most importantly, Souls-likes are not this fast-paced. They are slow, a test of patience, of resilience. They are carefully constructed, thought out with immense depth and detail. Aspects that can truly only be appreciated when the time is taken to step back and embrace the world around you. Do this in Nightreign and precious seconds are lost with the storm approaching ever closer, and before you know it, you've hit the final day in no state to fight against the final boss, forcing you into a losing battle. Elden Ring is a difficult and intense game, yes, but you can choose how you approach it, in haste or in your own time. Nightreign gives you the proposition, work fast or fail. You could argue that Nightreign is not going to have the same depth that Elden Ring does, so the fast pace is a non-issue, though it has been stated to have its own lore and story tied to the 8 characters and parallel world Limfeld, separate from Elden Ring's story. Though with the title Elden Ring in its name, it comes with some expectations that Nightreign clearly isn't going to fulfill. But does this matter? They haven't falsely marketed the game in any way. It's clear this isn't the next major entry. Using the title grants Nightreign a great level of exposure from the success of Elden Ring and allows them to reuse assets that justify the experiment's budget and time restraints. In a similar way that the other shock reveal, the Duskbloods, is justified by it being a Nintendo exclusive. While also controversial, it wouldn't exist without the support from that exclusive deal. Sure, both games feel experimental and come with these major drawbacks, but without them we wouldn't have any new content for some time. I feel in no position to complain when we are simply getting more games than we would have. Sure, it sucks many won't be able to play the Duskbloods due to this exclusive, but the Super Mega Next Action RPG entry is still on its way, and if anything, both these projects will elevate it into potentially the fantasy RPG Miyazaki sees in his visions. So what positive effect could Nightreign have on future projects? I'm sidelining the Duskbloods for now because that's a whole nother topic. FromSoftware have seen the benefits of making their games more accessible, prioritizing the player experience by reducing runbacks, introducing summons, and creating an open world, countering the feelings of hitting a brick wall, and optional bosses giving players more freedom on how they want to play the game. They haven't gone as far as creating a skip boss fight button like this game, but my point is that these changes allowed Elden Ring to soar in player counts and far outnumber what Dark Souls ever was, while still sticking to their roots of difficulty and what makes a Souls game a Souls game. Nightreign is enticing those who are invested into Souls games to try this new experience, while also enticing a completely new audience. This game isn't making Souls games more accessible, it's dragging in an entirely new multiplayer demographic who are willing to try Nightreign, as it doesn't hold the same heavy commitment that Elden Ring requires, and is something they are more accustomed to. These players, if finding Nightreign fun, could subsequently become interested in Souls games, achieving this merger of demographics. And through the development of this game, FromSoftware are learning how to implement multiplayer features where they were famously bad at it in previous entries. The mechanics FromSoftware are trying to practice and master, and the new audiences they are catering to in Nightreign could cause a surge in player counts outperforming Elden Ring for their next big RPG, given these new learned skills are implemented into it and are successful. However, this experiment is not without its hazards. You can't ignore the blatant fact that a lot of Souls fans simply don't like this type of game and won't give it a chance simply because of its name and IP. It's not a free game. In fact, if you want all of the content within Nightreign, it's basically the same price as Elden Ring, though this extra content will be coming later in the year in the form of a DLC. This observation puts into question its price tag. Sure, there's a cheaper option available, but who wants to be shorted of content compared to the other's experience? I suppose this offers the flexibility of allowing players to try the game for a lower price and choosing whether they want to purchase the DLC later on, though knowing there's content being withheld, especially for the DLC, doesn't feel good, especially how the game is clearly a side project and took nowhere near the amount of time or effort Elden Ring did. Hence Nightreign using Elden Ring and previous titles' assets, which isn't a big deal, but it loses some of the rationale for its price tag, potentially using nostalgia to mask this shortcut. Though I don't have much of a problem with this, as if any game would be able to bring back old bosses, this non-canon example would be it. Damn, their nostalgia bait worked. Price tag and player interest aside, will this game even be good? FromSoftware are known for their quality, but also for single player games. How will they fare when the multiplayer mechanics are at the forefront of priority and not a small side feature that it is to them normally? There's a lot to learn, and they don't have the multiplayer experience from a long list of games to base that knowledge off of like they did single player games. There are many unanswered questions when it comes to the multiplayer experience. Why is the squad number 3? Seems a little out of the ordinary. Most Souls players play their games solo. How will their experience with randoms be? How vital is communication and teamwork synergy to having a good performance? Not having crossplay only highlights this issue. Anyways, to answer the question in the title, is Nightreign destined to fail? I would say no. I trust that FromSoftware know what they're doing, and they deserve my faith in them to produce a good game, even if certain aspects look out of the ordinary. Many won't like Nightreign because it is different, which is fair enough, just like many didn't like Sekiro because of the combat was completely reworked. From this, the game garnered its own unique player base, consisting of Dark Souls players and new unique Sekiro players. I'm sure Nightreign will have no trouble doing the same, though it is a much bigger jump in difference than Sekiro was. Even in a reality where Nightreign is an absolute mess, the value FromSoftware get out of developing a fast-paced multiplayer game will be substantial for the future of their games, improving on multiplayer features and many other aspects like map traversal, which have had a massive overhaul to keep up with the pace of the game. I'm excited to see how people react to this project, as it could really go either way. I'm seeing a lot of excitement stemming from the network test, but also some who have completely written off the game, which is to be expected. I for one can't wait to see what they have cooked up, and I am ending the video now.